In working with hundreds of entrepreneurs as they go from idea to first launch with their no-code apps, there are three specific reasons we've identified as to why people win with their apps. And in this video, I'm going to share those with you. Now, we're also going to talk about three reasons why some people end up failing with their apps too, so make sure you stick around for that. One of the biggest contributing factors to people being successful with their no-code apps is when they're actually confident in what it is they actually want to build. Now, that might sound really obvious, but here's what I mean. So when people reach out to us to apply for our coaching and mentorship program to go from idea to pilot launch with their apps, sometimes it's clear that this person has a really great vision for their app and their business as a whole. Maybe they know exactly what impact they want to make on their market. They have the ideas and the enthusiasm and the excitement necessary. But when prompted to dig in and get granular about what it is their app actually needs to do, what processes need to be involved, and therefore exactly which feature sets need to be included, they get sort of stumped. And what I often see is that there is a visionary mindset and there is an integrator mindset. The visionary has that vision. They know where they want to go. The integrator is the one who really digs in and figures out all the little working pieces necessary to get to where the visionary wants to go. Now, you really need to have a balance of those two things. You gotta have the vision because that's the direction. That's what guides you toward the right place, right? But you have to have the integrator mindset too so that you can get granular on the solution, right? The app itself. Because if you can't do that, you will not succeed. People are successful with their no-code apps when they take the time to create a strategic scope for the different versions they're going to build, test, and launch. And when they have a development roadmap that says, okay, here's the first thing you need to do, the second, the third, and so on. And then, most importantly, they stick to that. They put their blinders on and they simply get to work. A roadmap, as simple as it sounds, is critical to your success because when you're building an app and just a business in general, there is no finish line. That means that in your future, there are going to be hundreds of steps that you need to take. That is overwhelming. There's really no way around it. But when you have a roadmap, it simplifies things. It strips away the hundreds of potential steps that you need to take, many of which you have no idea as to what is going to go into them, and therefore there's a lot of uncertainties, right? But a roadmap strips those away, strips away the uncertainties and the anxiety around all the what ifs, and it gets you focused on the next one step in front of you, the next two steps, three, right? But not hundreds. And that's one of the biggest pitfalls really that I see people run into, is that they are focused on all the steps to come versus looking at what they need to do next to reach their next biggest milestone. So if you want to be successful with your app, you really need to get a roadmap in place. And this is actually one of the things that we do on the strategy calls that we initially have with our own entrepreneurs because it's so important. We sit down with them and we scope out their apps and put together a strategic roadmap for the first version of their app, the next version, the next, and so on, so that they can have really granular steps to follow. You should do the same. And hey, if you want to sit down and put together a roadmap as well, and you want help getting your app out there, you can apply for one of those strategy calls over at coachingnocodeapps.com/call. I have never seen an entrepreneur pursuing the development of their app and business without having other things going on in their life. Most of them have lives, families, other responsibilities. Most of them have full-time jobs or businesses that they are running. Everybody has something going on. And those who are the most successful are the ones that make the time for their apps versus finding the time to work on their apps. Because again, you are always, without fail, going to have other things going on in life. And so if you find yourself thinking, well, I should wait for another month or another 2 months or until next season because that's when things are going to slow down. I guarantee you that once you get there, you're going to be just as busy because things will always be coming your way. And so the only way to be successful with your app and business is if you make the time to consistently put in the work required to get it out there versus finding the time. All right, let's flip the script and actually talk about some of the reasons why people fail with their no-code apps. A very sneaky mistake that I see some people making is when they do their exploratory research before they start the development of their apps. So they do their market research. They ideally have conversations with people within their market. They go through a validation process and they figure out what they want to build. But instead of going through that exploratory research and then moving into development and putting an end to the exploratory research, they continue doing that research as they build their apps. Now, I mentioned this is a really sneaky mistake, and it's because it can be hard to realize you're doing this because research, talking to your target market, going through further validation steps, that all sounds like a really good thing, but it's actually something that can work very much against you if you continue doing it throughout your development. Because here's the thing, if you go looking for ideas and feedback, you're going to find it. And if you constantly bring in new ideas and feedback while you are trying to build your app, you are never going to launch your app because every single new idea or piece of feedback you get is going to make you feel like, well, you're not currently going in the right direction because this is a new idea. You have to implement it, right, in order to build a valuable product. You will never launch if you do that. And so you have to go through that exploratory research, certainly, but then you need to move forward. You need to close the door on that, take what you've learned, and actually go into development. I see a lot of people start the development of their apps, but never actually finish the development of their apps. And not because they just set that project or that business venture aside, but because they just continue building forever. And one of the reasons why people continue building forever is because building more features is usually a lot easier than setting an actual launch date and starting to do your user outreach. That's uncomfortable. It adds some pressure, right? You're putting a date out there. You are talking to people and telling them, hey, a product is coming your way. But if you don't do these things, then you are at extreme risk for just never launching your app and vastly overbuilding your product. A couple of things we have our own entrepreneurs do is to, number one, set that launch date when they are still in development, and number two, start their user outreach so that they have users lined up and waiting to come on board their apps. This is, yes, admittedly, something that adds a little bit of pressure, but that's a really good thing because it's going to keep you from overbuilding your app and failing to ever launch. If you've ever heard the saying, perfectionism is the enemy of progress, but you've kind of just shrugged it off, then I want you to reconsider because perfectionism is one of the biggest things that keeps people from ever launching their apps. So here's how it kind of plays out. To put it pretty simply, a lot of people are afraid to fail with their apps. It makes sense, right? I mean, look at the conversation that we're having right now. But that often leads to a pursuit of perfection. So they're in development with their apps and they are afraid of failing. Therefore, they try to figure out exactly how to make the app perfect so that once they do launch, they don't fail. But if this resonates at all with you, the thing you need to understand is that perfection with your app is impossible. And in fact, that's a very good thing if you shift your mindset and your perspective just a little bit, because ultimately you can't achieve perfection unless you are actually getting signals and feedback and people using your app and telling you exactly what would make it even better. And in fact, I would argue that you can never achieve perfection and you never should strive to achieve perfection, because to me, that's kind of like a finish line. You should really always be trying to be better with your app, with your business, always striving for growth. But again, either way, the only way to get better is to get feedback. You can't build a perfect app. And in fact, you can't even build an amazing app. Let's just strip away that word perfect. You can't build an amazing app without people on board telling you how to make it better. The feedback is critical. And so if you haven't even launched the first version of your app yet and you're already trying to figure out how do I make this the most valuable, perfect product out there, you are holding yourself back. And in fact, you're doing a disservice to your potential users because they're never going to get the opportunity to use your app at all. So instead of being afraid of failure, look at failure instead as just lessons that you can learn to help you become better. That's the best way you can look at it, because that is going to allow you to get your app out there, even though it's not the best version of the product you could possibly build, right? Get your app out there because the feedback that you get is going to help you adapt, adjust, and pivot to build a better and better and better app. Now, look, if you're trying to go from idea to first users with your no-code app, and you want to know all the right things to do and also all the things that you should avoid, you can apply for a free strategy call over at coachingnocodeapps.com/call. On these strategy calls, we put together a development roadmap and then see if it would be a good fit for you and your app to join our private client program, where we help people go from idea to first users with their apps. So to apply for one of those strategy calls, head to coachingnocodeapps.com/call.